Lodge. McGregor saying on Twitter, quote, "I get fined more than these bums get paid." In large part, that's true. The last two McGregor fights, the notorious one, has set UFC contract records, breaking the seven-figure mark for his base pay, which did not include millions more in pay-per-view money. Next month, Conor McGregor will headline his fourth pay-per-view in less than a year when the UFC performs for the first time ever in New York at Madison Square Garden. With that being said, we are thrilled to bring into SportsCenter now Adi Attar, the man who cuts all the details and all the deals for this megastar from Ireland and also represents other high-profile athletes in MMA and the NFL. Adi, I want to start with the news yesterday of that $150,000 fine for Conor McGregor. Part of what makes Conor McGregor a star is his ability to do the unexpected. Did you think he deserved that punishment for throwing all those water bottles?
Well, first off, nobody likes to get fined, Coach, as I'm sure you and I could both agree. The fact is the commission, based on the statute, had the right to fine him 100% of his purse, suspend him, and also include charitable efforts. Our first concern was really ensuring that he was not going to be suspended, because as you mentioned, we have a fight about a month away, UFC 205, Madison Square Garden. Historical night where once Conor wins that fight, he will be the first to hold two belts at the same time in UFC history. Second concern was to ensure that we were to limit that fine. The commission stated that they have a formulaic approach whereby fining athletes about 10 to 15% of their purse. And as you mentioned earlier, this was the highest purse in UFC history. So we were able to, get them to agree with us that 5% was the right number, and even of that 5%, half of that was going towards a public service announcement. So, ultimately, no one likes to get fined, but we're happy we can move past that and focus on UFC 205.
So you're not going to appeal the fine, just to be clear? No appeal?
Well, listen, we're going to actually kind of, share all the information with Conor and let him know his rights and make that decision, but everything's happened just as of yesterday, so right now we're just trying to focus on the next task at hand, which is UFC 205.
All right, fair enough. A lot more to get to with you. This has been, Tar, such an historic year for the UFC, and Conor McGregor is the biggest reason for that. They sell for $4 billion. How do you specifically approach how to handle Conor's brand within the UFC brand?
Well, I think, they're two separate brands, but obviously interests align, and him having the ability to fight within the UFC and given that platform has been phenomenal for his own personal career. So we focus on his career, and obviously we have to focus on the UFC elements as it relates to his fights, but we have to do that for all our clients. So I think the sale is great for the sport, phenomenal for the Fertittas and Dana White, who were pioneers in this sport. So, it's good for the entire sport as a whole, including the fighters. So we're very excited about the future, and I think the best is yet to come.
Adi, everybody in this business has an ego. I've got an ego. You've got an ego. Conor's got an ego. Wow. We know that. How important was it for you and Conor to be the first fighter to surpass that $1 million in base pay for a fight in the UFC?
I think for Conor, for all of our athletes, it's important to make history. But Conor wants to make history each and every day in everything that he does. So it wasn't necessarily that one thing he's focusing on. He's always trying to, kind of set new records inside the octagon and outside the octagon. So, if you ask me where is it weighted, we really weren't thinking about it specifically, but we always want to make history, that's for sure.
There was so much made over the course of the last 6 months. Conor McGregor, throwing out Floyd Mayweather's name quite a bit. That fight's not going to happen now. But do you think we'll ever see the day that a fighter in the UFC could make $50, $100 million for one single fight?
Well, Floyd threw Conor's name out first, so let's just actually get the facts straight. Okay. And we responded accordingly. And ultimately, we could do this. That's how we've always felt about that situation. But we're obviously, I think every athlete dreams to make as much money as they can. And I think that if the sport continues to grow from an economic standpoint, the fighters are definitely going to be able to realize a higher payday.
The deal to have McGregor on the card at Madison Square Garden makes complete sense. Biggest star, biggest stage, most famous stage. But it seemed to take a little while to get done. Why did it take a little bit longer than most people thought it should?
Well, look, we have, obviously Conor is the main event for UFC 205. We have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson as the co-main event challenging for the welterweight title. And then we have Chris Weidman, former middleweight champion, who's coming back and competing in the #1 middleweight title contender fight in his home state. You know, Chris was the face of lobbying for legalizing MMA in New York. There was a lot of moving parts going on, and it wasn't all on Conor like everybody speculates. But ultimately, it got done, and now fans are going to be treated to one of the most historical events in the sport's history.
You are certainly an up-and-coming agent, not only in the world of MMA, but also in the NFL. I think it's fascinating to think about how you have to approach different kinds of contract negotiations. How would you say it differs between doing a fight contract and doing an NFL deal?
They're two entirely different industries. You know, you have the NFL, which is collectively bargained, and there's a union that's involved. So there's 32 teams competing for one athlete's business. Then you have MMA, which is unregulated. And you really have the UFC, then you have Bellator, then you have a lot of other mid-majors around the world. So you don't have that necessarily competitive landscape that you do see in football. There are definitely benefits to having a union in place and certain rights that we wish were afforded to fighters. But then there's also drawbacks, from dealing with a privately owned LLC as in the UFC. So I think for us, our main focus is to always make sure we're maximizing and forwarding our clients' careers, but keeping our ears and eyes open to what's going on in the industry. You know, you have certain efforts to try to unionize within the sport of MMA. Obviously, for us, we just want what's in the best interest of each individual client, and that varies from client to client. So it's very important just to keep them abreast of what's going on, educate them about the situation, and ultimately, it's always the fighter's decision.
Okay, with that being said, before I let you get out of here, you and I are talking 1 year from today. Conor McGregor will be where?
1 year from today, Conor will be a two-weight world champion, and he'll be live in full effect coming straight to you somewhere.
Very good, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you tonight.
Thanks, Coach.
Come back anytime. You bet. Adiatar,
Yep.
the main man for Conor McGregor, as well as many other guys in MMA and also the NFL.
We're forced to kind of look at how we were preparing for these contests, you know. It got complacent. We'll show up anytime. We'll train whatever we feel like. We'll hit them and they fall. This one, it forced us to look at how we were preparing. It forced us to come back together and do what we've been doing from the beginning, you know. Focus. Solid work.
The more you seek the uncomfortable, the more you will become comfortable.
Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz. Here we go.
Referee Herb Dean has called a stop to this contest at 4 minutes, 12 seconds of round number 2. Declaring the winner by submission due to a rear naked choke, Nate Diaz!
We've never seen Conor overcome adversity.
I've been on the end of many defeats in my life and I've rose back, so I will not shy away from it. I will not make excuses for it. I will assess it and come back.
I will never shy away from a challenge. I will never shy away from defeat. It is what it is. I came up short. I took a chance, didn't pay off. I'll be back.
What is going on here with Conor McGregor?
Conor McGregor, 12 minutes ago,
Excited
decided to
to retire
retire.
young, thanks to the cheese.
And Nathan Diaz submitting Conor McGregor in the second round.
How did this rematch come about, Dana?
He was obsessed with fighting Nate Diaz again.
I feel strong. I feel strong in my mind. I always do. I don't let defeat phase me. Like I said before, the true champions can come back. The true champions rise again. And I am a true champion, so I look forward to rising again August 20th. Just 2 years in the gym. True wins, true losses, true life. I just realized that if you say it to yourself and you look yourself in the eye, look yourself in the mirror and truly believe that not a man alive can beat you, then that is the way it is.
All right, let's go. The notorious Conor McGregor!
You know, there's something burning in me. I feel like my gut has been emptied again. Now I'm ready to die. There's no gift to choke, so there's no gift to just go until it's over. I'm gonna butcher him. It's gonna be ruthless. We can either run from adversity or we can face our adversity head on and conquer it, and that's what I plan to do.
For the winner by majority decision, the notorious Conor!
Every single person doubted me, every single fighter doubted me.
yourself! Uh-oh. Sam I am